Okay, well, thank you all for coming tonight. This event has been hosted by the Canadian Letterpress Alliance. If you don't know it already, we're an association, organization, an alliance of letterpress printers from across Canada. We share work with each other, so we do 2 editions a year and exchange them amongst ourselves, as well as having general meetings to talk about kind of how things are going with that process, as well as open events like this. So we're happy you're here. We're just finishing up the year, and if you're interested in joining us, keep an eye out on our Instagram page for an announcement when we're ready to open it up for new folks. Or we'll put our wiki on the chat area as well, just so folks can find that and find out a little bit more about us. I'm happy to introduce Phoebe Todd Parrish of Flycatcher Press, who's going to introduce our speakers and tell us about what's going to happen tonight.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is intimidating. So many people. Okay, well, thanks for coming to the inaugural Shop Talk, Canadian Letterpress Alliance, as Andrew introduced. And yeah, if you guys have ever gone to a PIP Shop Talk, that was kind of the model for what this was, but trying to keep it Canadian so that sort of our shared resources are more relevant. And yeah, we've been talking about it for the last year. And so big thanks to our presenters today, Marlene and Olga, for kind of helping us break the ice with this one. And yeah, I reached out to them because I knew that they both used polymer plates in their work. And so I'm very excited that they said yes. There is definitely a range of experience with polymer plates in the Letterpress Alliance, and I'm sure from the people who are not in it, who are just here tonight. So basically how this will go is I'm going to introduce the speakers, and then Marlene's going to present first, and then Olga will present second, and then we'll have questions for either of them about anything that they talk about in their talk, or just like general discussion, or questions that anyone else is free to answer as well after those two talks. So we're gonna keep, yeah. But in the meantime, if you don't want to forget your questions, you can grab a pen and paper and write them down, or you can also put them in the chat, and I'll read them out later. If you don't want to turn on your audio, that's cool too. And yeah, I think, yeah, Andrew said this is being recorded. So also the chat is recorded, just FYI. If you have like resources that you mention, um, other members, that it's helpful if you also link those in the chat, rather than sending everyone Googling things. So that's my only thing about that. Um, you all have great etiquette so far. Just keep yourself on mute until you are ready to ask your question. And then maybe because there are so many of us, when we do the questions, you could just do the little hand emoji on Zoom, and then I can kind of say your name. And yeah, so we're going to start with Marlene, and I'll give a quick little introduction to Marlene. Marlene MacCallum lives in Prince Edward County, Ontario, Canada, and is an honorary research professor at the Visual Arts program in Grenfell Campus Memorial University, where she taught printmaking, photography, and book arts before retiring in 2016. Her practice has evolved from photogravure prints to bookworks, incorporating writing and interactive digital formats, including collaborations with David Moorish, consistently exploring the poetic potential of everyday life. She's exhibited internationally in 147 solo, invited, and juried exhibitions across 19 countries, with work held in 57 public collections, and is a member of the Royal Canadian Academy of Arts. So thanks, Marlene, whenever you're ready.
Hey, thank you very much. I'm going to start by giving context for my use of polymer plates. This presentation will focus on how I make polymer plates, but I believe that why we use a process is as crucial as how. So I'll share a bit of my background and what I do. I'm a visual artist. I use a wide variety of print in making my bookworks, and letterpress is one of the many media. I lived in Corner Brook from 1990 to 2016, where I taught printmaking in the visual arts program at Memorial University. David Moorish, my partner, was the photo person. In 1993, we began collaborating on our research into copperplate photogravure. We were searching for the intersection of photography and printmaking. This process was my focus for many years, and I used it in the creation of artist books. In 2016, in 2016, we retired from teaching and moved to our current location in Mountain View. For 2 years, David worked hard building our new print studios. So for a while, I made my work using what was functional, and that was the inkjet printers. This was a catalyst for change in my practice. My work is a reflection and response to my environment, and this includes the reality of equipment. Where steps stop is a good example of how I've used polymer plates for both letterpress and photogravure. The images for this project were gathered over 3 years. Each volume emphasizes a different sensory response. This is a four-part work about the flux of water, sky, ground, and the phenomena of their visual convergence. The work is also about the nature of printing and the layering of process and word. I used polymer plates for the letterpress text in the volume Below Fragrant Skies. We use metal-backed polymer plates, and I normally print using a magnetic base, but when I need a larger surface, I use this one made of Baltic birch plywood, or you can use MDF, and a thin sheet of cardboard and 3mm plexi top. I'll briefly touch on my use of polymer photogravure. In Surface's Murmur, I layer polymer photogravure plates with inkjet printing. Within the photogravure world, there's much debate about the relative merit of polymer and copper. After extensive use of both, my position is that they're equally valid ways of making, but offer different options. For an extremely faithful translation of photographic tonality and resolution, polymer is actually more effective. Copper, however, offers a more graphic image with a reworkable plate. For both copper and polymer gravure, I make the positive transparency digitally, print on an Epson, and then expose using a homemade unit of BL bulbs and a freestanding vacuum unit. The photogravure plates are developed by hand in a tray. In Surface's Murmur, sonic memories are integrated into the visual record. Rather than use traditional copper plate photogravure, I use the polymer photogravure process for the way it supports the aesthetic and conceptual goals. This slide shows the stages of deconstructing, then reconstructing the image. The CMYK separations are used to create a digital print combining the cyan, magenta, and yellow layers, and the black printer becomes the gravure plate. The polymer process facilitates creating a precise registration system. The plate, which you see at the top left, is hole punched during the exposure process. The print is registered to it using pins and tabs, which are carefully removed before printing. And for those familiar with intaglio printing, normally the paper is dampened. However, I discovered that the coating used in inkjet media and the long, soft fibers of the Japanese digital papers permit dry printing, which makes a huge difference to registration. This image demonstrates the impact of layering the photogravure. The digital pigment ink sinks into the paper surface, and the black intaglio ink rests on top. The distinct layers of printing generate photographic and graphic realities that echo both the human presence and the natural world. In keeping with the visual emphasis of my work, I use text with a strong image and material emphasis. The plasticity of polymer plates is conducive to this approach. The fourth and final volume, Step Stop, was inspired by driving to the lake with the car radio on, while the frequencies flickered between the music of Arvo Pärt and other stations. This led to an exploration of the compositional structure of Pärt's music. My work grows through the interaction of layers. I use the background layer of the image as a reference to evolve this flux and flow of words. This file then became the negative for the polymer plates. Ultimately, I didn't use these plates, and instead, they became the basis for the print Brownie in Motion, which I made for the second CLA bundle. And these are proofs of the two text layers for that print. Brownie in Motion is printed using the two previous polymer letterpress plates and a bitmapped image plate. I'll give you a very quick overview of how I prepare the text files. I create the text as a 2880 DPI to preserve detail and save as a TIFF source file. If you have layers, you flatten them. Change the mode to bitmap with the in-out at 2880, and the method is 50% threshold. I invert to negative, but don't flip, and save this as a working file. I convert back to grayscale. This is now ready to print. The print process is the same as the one I'm going to show you for the bitmapped image. This is a model for track. It's part of my most recent body of work, and I'm currently making the polymer plates for this piece, so the timing is great. I've been visiting the wetlands south of my home, walking the gravel path that is part of the Millennium Trail that runs through Prince Edward County. This piece will use polymer letterpress to print the bitmapped images and separate polymer plates for the text. The bitmapping process creates a visual equivalent to the granularity of the gravel path. As we move into the piece, the resolution or frequency will become finer and less visually evident. Bitmapping translates the image's tonalities into a series of solid or clear dots, the digital equivalent of creating an analog halftone. The higher the frequency number, the smaller the dot. The Murafold centerpieces will be polymer photogravure to maintain full detail, tonality, and subtlety in the representation of the place. So what follows is my step-by-step process for the preparation and printing of the bitmapped image. This information is provided in the hope that it may be useful, but I do want to emphasize it's very specific to our equipment and materials. So the initial stage is the creative and image adjustment processing. I begin with an image file in Adobe RGB 16-bit 360 DPI. I do all the image adjustments and any resizing and avoid upscaling. I save this as my source file in either PSD or TIFF. I don't use JPEG or any other compressible default format. Our Epson printer has a native resolution of 1440. Therefore, the image file must be a factor of that number, hence 360. Do any necessary sharpening, but be careful not to overdo, as this will produce artifacts and affect your contrast. I highly recommend working with adjustment layers as much as possible, as these are non-destructive. I use adjustment layer channel mixer to determine optimal monochrome settings. This allows you to pre-visualize the effect of making your image into a grayscale. Once you have the correct setting, you save that. Once all the image adjustments are done, it's flattened. You can use Camera Raw filter to ensure all tonalities are appropriate. I enjoy working with layered processes because every step is an opportunity to see the image anew, to make a new creative response. So it's not just rote technical processing. Next, I'll review the steps for generating the negative bitmap file and printing on the inkjet printer. So first thing, change the mode to grayscale and 8-bit if it's not already. Under Edit and Assign Profile, I select Don't Color Manage this document. Invert the image to negative, but don't flip. It should be right reading. So this image, it's a bit of an aside, but it shows part of the type of testing I do. So I'm testing to determine the effect of different frequencies, dot shapes, process adjustment curves. The adjustments typically open the tonalities at the shadow end and add density at the highlight end. This is to compensate for dot gain during printing and reduces the contrast increase that is inherent to almost all photomechanical processes. After I've done my testing and determined the optimal adjustment, I save that as a preset, and then I apply that to the file and save it as a new file. So the final stage before printing is the bit mapping. So you go to the mode, you select bitmap. I work with an input of 360, output of 1440, and I use a halftone screen. Then the next screen will come up asking what frequency. I'm working with a range 90, 72, 60, 45. The round dot seems to be the best shape for letterpress. And then after that's applied, what I do is we bring the file back into grayscale and use the ratio at 1:1. The file has to be grayscale in order to print from Photoshop. When loading the Pictorico into the printer, we use the manual feed and put a piece of white copy paper behind, as the printer doesn't recognize the edge of transparent media. Our bitmapped images are printed on an Epson P5000 using Pictorico. So due to the incompatibility of current Epson software, Mac OS 26 and Photoshop 26, I now create my presets in Preview. The alternate is to use the Epson print layout, but this doesn't provide the necessary depth, range, and subtlety of control. We don't use RIP software. I've created my own curves and process adjustment presets. So to maintain consistency, it's crucial to have all the print settings coordinated and consistent. So printer manages color, relative color metric. I select my preset. In color matching, Epson control colors needs to be on. My printer settings, these are the ones that I use. So trying to keep everything as high and dense as possible. Under printer advanced media control, increase the density by 25%. And this is the output. The file cannot be longer than 30,000 pixels in any one dimension or it won't print. So after printing, you store the transparency at a dust-free environment, let it dry thoroughly, preferably overnight, and humidity can increase the drying time. We use an AZ PA350 plate maker to expose and develop the polymer plates for letterpress. This uses BL fluorescent bulbs for exposure and a layer of creen on the vacuum base for diffusion and contact system. We have a challenge-proof press. It's completely manual, but as I do small additions, this is manageable. And I'm now at the stage of proofing the plates, exploring ink and paper. I'll be making the text plates next. The image for the front cover at top is 45 frequency, and the image for the bottom center panel below is 72. I'm happy to have had this opportunity to share my process, and I'm glad to share my process notes. As these presentations are being recorded, the visuals will also be available for reference. And thank you to all these folks. And thank you to you.
Amazing. Thank you, Marlene. Wow. Okay, my head is spinning. I'm sure everyone is like 1,000 questions. So cool to see, like, I've seen some of your books in person in the Fisher Rare Book Library, and it's so cool to see the behind the scenes of how you make your plates and how the images come together. Because when you see them in person, they're just so perfect. It's amazing. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just going to introduce our next speaker, Olga. I have known Olga for many years. I kind of like inherited her course at Open Studio at some point. And I've since passed that on with Brianna in the middle, I think. But I'll give a little bit, and all this time, I don't actually know how to say your last name, Olga. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's Lumen now. So my old last name was Viatoric, which nobody could say. So I couldn't
Okay,
wait to change my name.
so it's
Just
Lumen.
Lumen.
That's
Just
what
like the
light.
the frequency of
Oh,
light. Is that lumens? Like the
it
same?
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Olga is our next speaker, Olga Lumen. Olga is the sole proprietor, presswoman, and self-described wearer of all hats in her letterpress studio, Kiss the Paper, which is in Ancaster, Ontario. Olga studied printmaking at OCAD and bought her first tabletop press in 2012. Since that time, she's taught workshops like the Open Studio one, exhibited at craft shows, built a wholesale stationery line, and grown her studio that's now filled with antique presses, all while drawing inspiration from nature, animals, design, and hand lettering. After becoming a mother in 2019 and 2021 and adapting through the pandemic, Olga shifted the studio toward themed mini collections that streamline production through shared color palettes while still offering richly designed, high-quality letterpress cards and paper goods. Olga also offers plate making services to other printers, and I have been buying plates from Olga for ages. And yeah, so thank you, Olga. Go ahead.
Thank you. I will say I just moved to Ancaster, so I think you got the bio thing from my website, which I thought I had changed to Ancaster, but it's okay.
I did. I
I'll
did
forgive
get
you.
it from. Wait, you moved to Ancaster. Did I say Ancaster?
No, you said Caster Center. That was like our old location. That's totally okay. Hi everybody. I'm Olga. I am everything that Phoebe just said. I just want to say, Marlene, your presentation was amazing. I don't think mine's going to be as in-depth and elaborate as yours, so it's going to be a little bit faster and a little bit more like maybe a little technical and maybe more showing you the step-by-step processes of how I make plates for myself and for people who order from me. So as Phoebe said, I now have switched to printing small batch collections with my greeting card line. I believe you guys received the chickens in the exchange. Um, so that was part of my Birds of Christmas collection where I just did the 6 birds from the 12 Days of Christmas song. Yeah, I print in collections so that I can maximize the amount of colors that I print with. Because as you know, it's one color at a time on the press. So I print, I put one color down on the press and I can print 6 designs. And so that kind of expands the color palette that I'm working with. And I like color. I think you guys all know, or if you do know me, you know that I like color. And I've also been adding some hot foil stamping into the mix to just like adding some more pizzazz. So I'm just going to start with, actually, I'm just going to talk about briefly about my plate making service. So I opened that up. I think it's been 10 years. I don't know. Sarah, you might know. I think she was my first client. Like, I don't even know how long ago that was. But I used to operate like a Newark flip top plate maker, which is just this massive box that just has a light in it and it has like a glass top and it flips and the other side is also a glass top. I used to use that to expose my plates and then I would wash them by hand with a brush in the sink and it took a really long time. And then I would dry them and do a post exposure. Like one plate took me about 40 minutes to make. So I did the legwork, guys. So I got an A4 Polymero plate maker, which I'll show you guys in the presentation, which has like made one plate. The whole process takes like 15 minutes now, maybe 13. So it's definitely reduced my time in half. And now I opened it up to more printers across Canada and now even some in the States, which is just bonkers to me. I had 2 people from California a couple weeks ago that I was like, do you guys know of like Boxcar? Yeah, I'm just going to show you the process of how I set up the files, how I print the files, and then how I make plates. So hold on, give me a second here. Start share. Oh, just a second. Sorry, guys. I have to select all of the pictures again.
I believe in you, Olga.
Oh, no.
I believe in you and your iPad.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. Anybody else wants to chat while this is happening? It's totally fine. Okay. Oh, no. Sorry, just give me a second, guys.
I put the
collections. Sorry. Yeah, I got it. Okay.
Okay, got it. You got
Sure.
it.
But it still wants me to like click every single picture in order. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Does it also work if I zoom in and people can see it better?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. So I primarily work from Illustrator. So when I get files sent from clients, I prefer them to be PDF or AI, or like Illustrator file. And this is how people send me their files. I prefer them to be negative because I want to do as little work as possible and have them like ready to go. So if you send me a file that is like basically your design file, I will basically say like, please redo this or resend as a negative. So this was 2 clients last week. They the two together is a postcard, and I actually had to increase the background of her black background basically because photopolymer plates tend to curl if you have a really large surface area. So she was okay with this, so I did that. Sorry, I have cats and I'm just so excited because they're just coming over to me. So I prefer a negative that is right reading because I do the flipping and I make it wrong reading for my clients. So this is what it looks like. This is an example of a negative that I put together for myself for my own work. So you can collage all of the different colors that you're going to be printing with because as you know, you need a separate plate for every color that you want in your design. So I try to gang up as much as possible, and the printers that order from me also know this, that they just like try to maximize their square inches as possible. So that was that. So one thing that I want to mention, I basically look for 2 things when people send me a file is their fonts outlined. So if you're designing a file, you can edit the text. This is what it looks like when you can edit it. All you have to do is select it and type create outlines, and then it's outlined. Yay. So this is like one of my biggest things that I get from people who order from me is that I can't generate their plate exactly how they designed it because they didn't outline their plates or outline their fonts, and my computer will generate a different font. So that's like one of the main things that I always have to like ask them to resend. And I've had people send me like literally outlined text. Like, do you understand like the outline? And I was like, no. So I've had to explain to a lot of people. I've had to change the wording on my plate making page so many times. So now they know this is what I prefer. Anyway, back to the negative that I was working with. I use AccuRip, which is a rip software that I use to tell my printer to use all the cartridges have black ink in them, and it tells my printer to use all 6 cartridges of black ink. And it also does another feature where it can take a grayscale and it can make it can spit out a halftone. If you don't want to play with halftoning in Photoshop, the AccuRip software does it for you. So AccuRip software is something that a lot of screen printers use to make their positives, and that's actually how I started making plates and making my negatives is by using the screen printer's method of making positives. So I use an AccuRip software. So I send this to print. Sorry, guys. And this is AccuRip. And from here, I can send it to my printer to print. So here is an example of the negative that I was about to print, where, as you can see, the one black box has a lot of little dots on it. And that tells me that that black is not 100% CMYK black. So my printer will actually print all of those dots. So I had to go back, set everything back to CMYK, 100% black, and then it was ready to print. So I print from a Canon Pixma IP8720 printer. I used to use for, I would say then like 9 years, I used to use an Epson Artisan 1430. It died and it was very sad. You can't replace that printer. They don't make them anymore. And so the Canon was sort of like the direct sort of similar printer that I found that I could use. I converted all of the cartridges inside to black ink, as you can see. I have to refill these inks all the time. The Epson had better cartridges. They held more ink. This is like half a well and half a sponge. So the sponge soaks up the ink and then it's like gone from the other side. And I'm just like constantly refilling ink. So sorry if it looks gross, but it's unavoidable. I use the D-Max All Black black dye ink that you can get from ScreenTech. So I get my film and my dye from ScreenTech, which is a screen printing supply company. And that's what I use to fill the cartridges with, just like a syringe. Here it is spitting out the negative that I just sent to print. The max size that this can print is 13 by 19, and that is a 13 by 19 sheet. I try to, as well, collage as many negatives as I can onto one piece of film, but sometimes you just have to go bigger because smaller doesn't work. This is what I check to see that it is opaque enough, and I also check to see the thinness of the lines. I don't have a perfect formula for, like, people are going to ask me, how thin can we go? Or like, what's the smallest text you can do? And I feel like there's so many different variables. I could do an 8-point bold font and it's going to turn out great, but I could do a huge script font, but the thin script or the thin lines in the script might be too thin and then they won't work. So this is a stage where I check the negative and I check that it's going to work. And I know now from so many years that a line, if you just do a line in your drawing, like a point line, if it's anything smaller than 0.5, we're in trouble. So I do usually 0.75 is the smallest I go. However, the printer outputs about a 0.5 point, if that makes sense. So there's a little bit of like a bleed, but it doesn't seem to make an effect for any other illustrations, just for lines. So let's just say that's what it works. This is my plate maker. It is a Polymer A4 plate maker. It looks like it's in the dungeon. It's just in the back part of my studio. It is similar to Marlene's plate maker in that it has a washout unit, a dryer unit, and an exposure unit. The two units, they're sort of separated from the top and bottom. So the top is the washout unit, and the bottom has the exposure and the dryer. This is how it looks like with the water inside. I know it looks gross. I'm sorry, I left a little bit of dirty light water in it. It actually gets worse than this. So this is actually like not bad. I don't have water in my studio. I have to run outside to my tap and I have to fill it with a bucket. So excuse me if there's a little bit of dirty water. Because of the humidity these days, I have to dry my negatives for just like a couple minutes in the dryer before I actually cut them out and put them onto the plates. Again, 3 years of experience, I've noticed that if it's humid and I stick the negatives down onto the plates, the black toner will peel off. And if you just want to realign the negative a little bit on the plate, then you've like basically lost your negative because it sticks to it and you can't realign it. So that's drying. Sorry, that was the dryer, and this is the exposure unit. It has the same screen that the translucent film that Marlene had in her plate maker, where you put your plates underneath. These are the dials, exposure, temperature for the dryer, a dryer gauge. Everything is in minutes, and there's a button for the vacuum. It's super simple. I love this machine. And these are the dials for the washout unit. So the washout unit is always open because you never want that gummy rubber backing to be in the water because it'll actually stop being sticky. So it's always open, and that's why I always have this like piece of wood down to not make the water evaporate. But anyway, same thing, timer in minutes, temperature for the water gauge, and a heater. And the little red button in the middle is a buzzer that goes off when it's done washing. I love it. I store my plates in a drawer in the photographic bag that I get my plates from. I've had so many requests like lately that people want to buy a raw plate from me, and I just say no. And that's because I have to send it to you in one of these bags or some sort of protective material from light, and I don't want to do that. It's I need this. So the plates are stored in a drawer in the bags, and the temperature of my studio hasn't really affected the plates at all, but the humidity has. So after my negatives have dried for a little bit, I cut them out from the big sheet of film. I used to cut the negatives exactly on the black line of the plate. And I used to also do my plates as close, like I used to try to be so cheap. I would make my plates, again, as small as the negatives are. And then what I found was that I got some bubble effects happening on the edges, and that's where, like, if there were crop marks or anything, the seal on the vacuum wouldn't be so good, and then I would have problems. So I've gone a little bit bigger with the negative. I've gone a little bit bigger with the plate, and this is what works for me. So here I've just grabbed some plates. I had a scrap piece for the little skinny one. And I cut down just on like my guillotine to size. And so these are almost ready to go. I have to peel back this film. This film is like a protective film for the actual plate, and they won't expose unless this film is gone. So you peel back the film, and this is where I flip the negative. So now it is wrong reading. So I flip it here, I put it down on the plate, and then I put it into the exposure unit. I put it under the screen, make sure everything is lined up. I turn on the vacuum and make it nice and lovely. So this is where I also check for any like little debris that is stuck between the vacuum and the screen. If you can see here, like these little bubbles might have an effect if there was text there, but I left them because it was just black. It was totally fine. But I usually check to make sure nothing is obstructing the exposure. And I turn it on for 3.5 minutes. And I just changed the bulbs on my plate maker. So it used to be 6 because I could, like, as they age, you kind of have to go longer and longer, but I just changed them. So I'm back to 3.5 minutes again. After 3.5 minutes, this is what the plate looks like. As you can see, there's some discoloration where it was hardened and where it is where it's remaining soft. So this is where we can start seeing like how a plate is made. So the black area in a negative gets washed out. The clear or white part of the negative is what gets hardened in the exposure process. And this stays the thickness of the plate when it is raw. And then all the black areas get washed out and they are lower. So this is where basically your stamp is getting made. So that's just a picture of it closed. I turn it again, the washing machine. The washout gets turned on for 3.5 minutes. So I'll just go back to this slide. This rubber backing is the thing that actually moves and oscillates back and forth. and the brushes are stationary, and that's how it brushes out or washes out the unexposed polymer. So I'm washing it for 3.5 minutes, and then this is what it looks like when it's washed out. As you can see, the color of the water is gross. It's super cloudy. I can get about, I would say, 3 plates before I'm like, this is disgusting. I need to like change the water. But different plates will not need to be washed out, or the plate maker doesn't need to be washed out as much. The gentleman who had this plate maker before me used to use different plates, and he was like, I had the same water in there for months. And I was like, oh my God, like that's totally different. So this is what it looks like when it's washed. I rinse it with some water. Again, I don't have a sink in my studio, so normally I would take this to a sink, but I cannot. So I just give it a quick rinse. And I use a microfiber towel to just dry it a little bit before it goes into the dryer. I know Boxcar sells these like sponge things on a roller, which they have in their like plate making shop. I don't think it's necessary. A microfiber towel works because it has microfibers, like it's not going to leave any residue. Give it a little pat pat, and then into the dryer it goes. It needs about 5 minutes to dry. And then after it's dried, I put it into the exposure side again for a post exposure. I can do this post exposure in the sun. That's what I used to do with my old plates when I had to do it in like 40 minutes. I would just like lay them out in the sun and let them bake. So you can totally do this in the sun. Obviously, it's a lot easier to do this in the plate maker. Because the units are separate in the actual machine, so there's a washout unit, there's an exposure side, and then there's the dryer side. I can have plates going a step back from each other. So after I did this plate, what you didn't see was that little skinny plate. I basically did one step behind throughout this whole process. So all of these elements can operate separately. So I always post expose for just a little bit longer than the initial exposure. So it's a 4-minute post exposure. And this is my bucket system. Oh, it's great. We don't need to go into that. Anyway, after the plates are made, I stick them onto this double-sided adhesive, again from Boxcar. If anybody knows where you can get this adhesive, please tell me. I have tried other adhesives from the company that I get my plates from, which is Williamson Printing Materials in Grimsby. And they've sent me like 3M brand adhesives. None of them were like this. Like, what is this? And there's no labels. There's nothing on the inside tube of this adhesive. So if anybody has any info, I'd love to know. So I also stick, as you can see, like, why didn't she cut out the plate from like the extra border? That's because I have nicked plates so many times with an X-Acto knife, and I've ruined a client's plates. So I just do this. This saves money for me. So I stick everything down, and then I cut it out with scissors, and I put it into a nice baggie. The plates should be stored in a bag so that they don't curl as much. And that's it. I think that's it. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you,
How do I
Olga.
get out of this? I maybe should say that I expose the KF95 plates. That's a very common plate for printing on a standard relief base. There's also the KF152, which is a little bit thicker plate, which is for the different base, the smaller base.
It's a deep
right?
or whatever, right?
Yeah. How do I get out of this? Okay, stop share. Okay.
You did it. You're free.
Yay.
Thank you, Olga. Yay.
So
And you
different than Marlene's.
Yeah, but I think that's great. Like, even how you both use different printers, and your negative process, and Marlene uses Photoshop, and you're an illustrator person. Like, I think it just shows that there's so many ways to make plates, like all types of printmaking.
Yeah.
And like you could you could definitely DIY it if you don't have a plate maker. But I think the common thread is that it requires testing.
Yes.
The exact settings and what is going to work for you depends on what is available to you. It's like it's not impossible, but it requires some patience and you're going to screw up a lot of plates. And
Yeah.
even raw polymer is expensive. So if
Yes.
anyone is wondering.
Yeah, so I used to get negatives printed from a company in Burlington who had an image setter,
Mhm.
which I don't even understand how they work, but it made beautiful negs. And the drive was just killing me after a while, like to just go over there just to get a negative made. So that's why I like sought out a DIY method, and this is what's been working for me. So an image setter, like I was quoted one, and it's like 14 grand, but that was like 5 years ago, so it might be like 20 grand now. I'm like, I don't have that money. So this is
Yeah,
working for what I need. So yeah.
perfect. Okay. It is, let me check the time, 7:51. So we can go a little over 8, but we'll, try to get everyone's questions if they have them in. If you have a question that's like more general to everyone, you maybe just say that. But if you have a question that's like directed to one of the presenters, you're welcome to address them specifically. Um, and yeah, uh, if maybe the best thing is to just raise your hand or write the question in the chat and I could read it. Up to you. Any questions, people? Okay, Yvonne has some questions. Okay. He asked Marlene, unclear why you rasterize text in your polymer plate making workflow. Could you keep it nice and crisp as a vector layer all the way through your process and merge it with images in your work in Photoshop or Illustrator? So I guess he's mostly just asking like why do you use Photoshop over Illustrator, Marlene?
Oh, I don't work with Illustrator. I work with Photoshop. So because what I'm doing is really much more visually based, that's why Photoshop is a choice. And so um, like a lot of the processes, I have to make things work for multiple applications. Um, Now, I'm certainly going to look into this more, but my understanding is that Photoshop does not do the vector layering that Illustrator does. So that's why it's rasterized. So,
If the reason why I added Illustrator in my question is because I meant to mention both. You can absolutely 100% introduce a vector layer in Photoshop,
okay,
and you do not have to rasterize. So that, if it's of interest, you might want to look into that.
yep, thank
It's
you.
a matter of importing, and the best way to do it would be to make a file that's the exact same dimension and bring it in as a smart object,
Okay,
and your text will stay vector. And that might be something that would be good if you cared to keep it super sharp and not have to worry about really high resolution.
thank you.
But I was curious to know if you had to do that or not. So that helps me as well. So that was a matter of choice then.
Yeah, well, right
Okay.
now, also just another practicality. Um, with the Creative Cloud, I mean, it's practicalities factor in. I used to, as a university professor, get the educational rate for the cloud. I don't anymore.
Yeah.
It has become prohibitive. And because I don't work with Illustrator hardly at all, or never did. However, I'll certainly think about that, and I really appreciate you sharing that.
Well, you're
That's
you're
helpful.
fortunate because you can get Photoshop for so much cheaper. I always feel anyone
Oh,
that
I can't
needs
anymore.
InDesign or Illustrator is getting hijacked
Yeah.
by Adobe. Good for you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. I see Alyssa has raised her hand. So Alyssa, did you want to ask your question?
Uh, yeah. Hi. So quick note about Creative Cloud before I forget. If you subscribe to it and then you kind of go through the cancel process and then keep agreeing to cancel until Photoshop or like Illustrator or like all of Creative Cloud yells at you, you can finagle a $40 a month full access to the suite for either 6 months or a year. That's kind of how I've been getting Creative Cloud for significantly less for several years now. Otherwise, it's silly. My question, everybody, is do you have like a best practice for storing your plates? Because I know like when we order plates, especially for prints that we want to reprint further down the road, or if we have obviously plates are not cheap to get. We, when we're peeling them off the boxcar base, we try to be super careful about it. And I find anything with either more detail or like more coverage. So like actually, Olga, the example that you were showing with like a lot of like ink coverage space is like solid. That tends to either warp or curl or crack. So do you have any recommendations for best way to store that doesn't cause sadness down the road and like the plate shattering when you go to put it on press about 6 months down the line?
I've never had a plate shatter of the KF95. So this is an example of what you just described of like a larger surface area. I used to print with the KF152s, and I just like did this one day and it just like cracked in half. I just store them in baggies in like a binder sleeve, and I haven't had any trouble. I've had people say that they could like sandwich them in books, but like I don't know if that's going to work for you if you have so many places to store, right? So if anybody else has like a better method, love to hear it.
I think you could also store them the opposite direction that they want to curl. So if you store them face down. Sarah
I've
has
heard that
a comment.
plates sealed in Ziploc bags with carbon dioxide, so you can blow in them, but that's not, it's kind of hard to put air and seal the bag, but you can buy carbon dioxide because it's used in the beverage industry and whatnot. And plates kept sealed in good quality bags will stay fresh longer. I have not had a chance to test this.
I think Sarah and David both had comments. So Sarah first, go.
Am I unmuted?
Unmuted.
Okay. I don't store mine in any particular amazing way, just in a Ziploc bag in like a filing cabinet, but I have had success rehydrating and reflattening curled plates. So far, my method, I usually do it the day before I know I want to print, depending on how curled it is. If it's just a little warped, I will dampen a shop towel. I usually spray it with like a misting spray. And then I put the plate face down on the shop towel in a plastic bag with a heavy, I use like a package of type usually, something heavy and flat on top. And then I usually find by the next day, providing it's the right amount of dampness, this has taken some practice, like can't be too wet or too dry. The plate will sometimes go like perfectly back to new, basically. Sometimes it takes a few days of hydrating and drying and rehydrating to get the perfect flatness, but you get the hang of it.
That's a good tip. I saw on Boxcar that they said you could rehydrate your plates, but it's cool to know how to do it exactly. David, do you have something you want to add or question?
Okay, there we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna. Sarah's method is a lot more detailed than mine, but yeah, we just rehydrate by throwing them in a little cup of water, like a bowl of water. Let them soak for maybe like half an hour, and I only really do that when there's like a plate with a lot of coverage, like you're saying, like a lot of heavy solids. But yeah, it seems to work, and it seems to work to like get them on the base without cracking or breaking. But I like the towel idea. I'm gonna try that.
Do you find are you dunking them right in water?
Yeah, we just throw them in a bowl of water for like half an hour. But like, I forget who told me that, but it's not something I do that often. It's just like when you have a plate that has like a big background or a lot of solids just
Yeah.
directly in water, and it seems to work.
Do you find it ever swells too much that way, or do you have to keep an eye on it and like check where it's at?
I've never left it overnight or for an extended period of time. Like I'll just like go to the kitchen, grab a bowl, let it sit in the bowl for like maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, and then like blot it off and throw it on the base. So I don't know. It's probably more of an aggressive approach than what you're describing, but it seems to work.
That's
Quicker.
awesome.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? There's still lots of people here. Hi, Amy. Jeremy, hello. Question.
Hello. Yeah, is this working? Awesome. I was just going to chip in about rehydrating because that's been an issue for me too, and I've had luck just balling up paper towel, throwing it in a big Ziploc with a plate, and kind of like you, Sarah, just overnight, and that's worked well. And weirdly, I've had it where it starts curling the other way, like very aggressively, which is useful actually. Like it's trying to stick to the base now. So yeah, if I've left it over 2 nights, that's what happens. So
Love it. I also want to say, Olga, when you in your presentation, when you showed how to dry the how in humid you dried the inkjet transparency in the dryer is also so smart because I yeah, that occasionally happened to me and I'm like, why does it happen sometimes? But I guess it just must be on the more humid days. So that was like a good little tip. Um, does anyone else have any other questions specifically? Yes, David.
Okay. Sometimes I receive a plate from our supplier that has like a skew to it or like some weird little blip, and I'm just wondering, is that something that happens when like during exposure, like the vacuum comes down and doesn't seal the film perfect?
Yeah, I get the little blip when there's just a speck of something and it just causes like a shadow. So that whole area, like the text will just look like it was like inflated.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah, that's what that is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because it's more three-dimensional, so the light is like getting in between the negative and the plate, right?
Yeah, it's just distorting the way the light is exposing it. Yeah. And it, like the tiniest little speck, yeah, could do it. Yeah.
I think that's a good question and a good if anyone tries to make plates at home, like Marlene and Olga just showed they're plate makers and they're different, but they both had vacuum units and they were talking about the crane. The crane is not just like a plastic, it is like super tight, like
Yeah.
feed level tightness. I have seen people do more like DIY versions where you could sandwich it between glass, but you're never going to get the same contact between the negative and the polymer if you do it that way. So it's not that you can't do it, but it's just going to limit the fine detail in the plate that you can make if you don't have that super tight contact between the plate and the negative. And that's why they also both didn't reverse the images. They put the negative face down because you want even the width of the acetate Pictorico film, whatever, is going to obscure the light if it's further away from the plate. So, Alyssa, you're muted.
Yes. Hi. Another question of like setup. I'm so sorry. My cat is contributing. What would you recommend as far as like either a minimum or like a recommended border around the art, so that like you have kind of like a lip, obviously that's stuck to the base, because I find that like if it's too thin of a washed out border, then the plates will maybe peel back, or if like it's an older plate, or if I hadn't rehydrated, that's a fantastic recommendation from everybody. But anything that's like where the plate is curling, then the edges start coming up, and then that catches a little bit of the ink, or it catches the plate. Like the number of times I've used like a really old plate and I'm just sitting there like literally cutting out with an X-Acto knife just little windows for the areas that are inked, because there might be like that little bit of lift to a plate. So what would you recommend, as far as like an edge around the image so that doesn't happen?
So like I did with that one client, I gave her a 1/4 inch all around. Maybe that's overkill, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. You could even go more, right? But I think it all just depends. If it's hydrated, then it wouldn't lift. So maybe it's the hydrating that would help that problem. Does that make sense?
That's a good point. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we all know how to hydrate our plates.
Stay hydrated. That is the
Stay
moral.
hydrated.
Any other questions you guys might have? Okay, well, you can think about your questions. I want to do one more plug. Anyone who's here from the Canadian Letterpress Alliance, if you enjoyed this talk and you too would like to be a presenter in the future, this would definitely relies on people volunteering. You know, I just reached out to Marlene and Olga, but yeah, anything that you feel like you don't even have to be an expert in it necessarily, just can be something that you want to discuss. Maybe you're just talking about how you tried something and just kept failing, and that's the you know the whole thesis. That is totally fine. Yeah, and so you can email the CLA. Andrew, maybe can you put the email in there, chat?
Sure.
Thank you. If you have an idea for Shop Talk, so even if you're not a member of the Canadian Letterpress Alliance, if you have an idea for the Shop Talks are always going to be like open to people. The presenters are going to be members, but yeah, if there's something else that you want to hear about, uh, like you can send us an email, and yeah, and members, if you have an idea as well, you can also send us an email idea. And if you can bring someone else, if you already know someone else in the alliance, like would be good, you can also suggest them or encourage them. That would be great. Because we're gonna try to do this like, you know, not too infrequently. We're gonna try to do it a little more regularly. So that's the goal. That's the goal. Any other questions while I was rambling about that everyone thought of? Yay. Thanks, Larry. And Olga didn't show any of her work, but I put her email or her website in the chat, so you should go look at what she makes with her polymer plates. um, that would be good
Can you
too.
tell I just like threw this together today?
Well, I guess all your work is kind of just behind you there, so that's good.
Yes, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. And I will say, just as a last like note, there's so many people like Olga and like Marlene who, you know, that's kind of the whole point of this is like it's not just boxcar. We don't have to go to America to buy the things. The resources do exist here and the knowledge exists here. So yeah, just like don't be afraid to reach out. Thank you guys. Andrew, did you want to say anything at the
No,
end?
just thanks everyone for coming and joining us. And yeah, again, keep an eye in the chat. Near the start, we put kind of the wiki that has everyone's information about everyone, and then keep an eye on us on Instagram. We do have some spots that are going to open up this next year. So if you're interested in joining us, you can use that email to let us know, and we'll kind of put out a call when we get to that point.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye.